You can't talk about cricket without thinking about the values that were behind it. The whole idea of fair play, you walked, if you nicked it to the wicketkeeper, you didn't claim a catch that was on the half volley. All these things were part of what we were trying to say to the world about the way we should treat one another.
The spirit of cricket, I mean, it's integrity, I think it's honesty. It is its own code, its own moral code, and it's served the game pretty well for 130, 140 years.
I remember Kofi Annan at the United Nations in New York once making the comment about something that had taken place in the world and said, "That's not cricket." Kofi Annan has never played a game of cricket in his life, but he knows what cricket stands for. And if someone at the United Nations, the head of the United Nations, could use that term, it means that cricket stands for something, and the game should never be allowed to die.
How could cricket ever die? It's grown from the green fields of England to become the second most popular sport in the world, played and watched by 1 billion people. My name is Sam Collins. This is my friend Jarrod Kimber. We're two among those billion cricket fans. From different backgrounds and different sides of the earth, we've been mad about cricket our whole lives, and eventually it brought us together. Now we get paid to travel the world and watch it as journalists. In 2011, we set out to make a film about the game we love and what future it had in the modern world. We couldn't have known then that we would stumble across one of the biggest scandals in sport, or what we would learn about the men who were supposed to be the guardians of the game.
Cricket is going through a turmoil. It is going to destroy the game and all forms of the game.
My family have been involved in playing cricket and administering cricket forever.
We have no interest to hurt cricket in any way. That is incorrect.
Or that in the end we would stand by helpless as 140 years of history was buried in the urban desert of Dubai. This is our story. It's a story about people, about greed, about power, about the endless pursuit of more and the precious things that are lost along the way.
You're watching the Chuck Fleetwood Smiths. You're watching the Chuck Fleetwood Smiths. You're watching the Chuck Fleet... Don't know what happened there?
It all began when I was trying to make a career as a cricket journalist, and I met Jarrod, an Australian blogger who had come to London to shake up the establishment. Quickly realising we had more chance together than alone, we started making web videos for cricket freaks. We named ourselves after a famous drunk cricketer, and our mascot, Hansie, after a notorious match fixer. The results were often terrifying. We had two things in common, our sense of humour.
Would you mind if I asked what colour your trousers were?
Well, I know what colour my trousers are.
And a lifelong love of the oldest form of cricket, Test cricket. If you asked me what made Test cricket unique, I'd say it is the one sport that is not just about winning. It's about what you learn over those 5 long days.
It's called Test cricket, and that's what it is. It's a test. It's a complete test. It's a test of your skill, it's a test of your courage, and it's a test of your intelligence. Certainly as a batsman, As far as I was concerned, a test match was perfectly named. It was a test.
About the contest, nation against nation, bat against ball.
It's like gunfight at OK Corral, and it's a nasty game and there's a real baddie. And he's coming after you. The opening batter, he's coming after you. Do you want to be here? Because he's going to hurt you.
About the way different people play it.
Test cricket allows people to be big and small and fat and thin, ugly and beautiful and slow and fast. And really no other sport does that. That's a freak of a game. That's what makes it so special.
About how it brings so many different people together. Of course, the gentleman's game has never been perfect, but it's our imperfect. But however great we thought Test cricket was, we were constantly being told that there was no place in the modern world for a game that was a legacy of imperialism and lasted 5 days.
So what are you packing for?
Australia, India, Sam.
And the other woman.
Sam, the other woman, exactly.
And seeing as we were cricket journalists, we thought we should try and answer the game's biggest question. Was Test cricket really dying?
I'll only be away for a few weeks this time. It's not too bad, is it?
The first stop on our journey was Jarrod's hometown of Melbourne. We had a crew and a camera, but no script and no idea what we were looking for. So we picked up the phone to a cricketing friend of ours, someone whose journey would mirror our own over those next few years.
Basically, it's only the whole film basically hinges on you.
It really doesn't. Tell him he's our human angle.
Ed Cowan had just been picked to make his Test debut for Australia, and he wasn't your ordinary sportsman.
If I had to cook you a meal to knock your socks off, I'd probably do salmon, fennel and dill on avocado, mango salsa maybe. I think you'd enjoy it.
Ed and Jarrod had met online a few years earlier when he was just another young cricketer trying to make his name. Now, somehow, we'd persuaded Ed to let us follow him through the biggest moment of his career.
Death of a gentleman. No gentlemen in here, boys.
We hoped that his experiences would show us what Test cricket was really all about.
Edward was passionate about being the best he always could at everything. Well, I used to take to the nets 3 days a week, and it always before a game, he always wanted a quick hit, which meant about, 400 balls.
Ed's was the sort of story that made so many people love sport. For years, he struggled with injury and then moved his family across Australia to Tasmania for a fresh start.
Shots, and that brings it up. Oh, he's happy with that, and so is the crowd. Ed Jarrod, what a great innings.
Now, at 29, he was finally making a name for himself.
He's fit for Tassie, 7 times.
It feels as though all the little moments feel like they've been justified in a way. To ruin your wife's career, to move to an isolated island off the south of Australia, just so I could play cricket, that's a big move. So in a sense it feels as though that's been justified, I guess.
What we were watching was just the culmination of a lifetime dedicated to one cause: playing Test cricket for Australia.
Test cricket, for me, it is the game. It's the only cricket, how I judge cricketers by. To all of a sudden be in that cauldron, I don't know how I'll handle it until the occasion, I guess. Boxing Day Test, mate. Debut.
When Boxing Day arrived, 80,000 fans descended on the Melbourne cricket ground for the biggest day in the cricketing calendar. Ed had entered a whole new world.
Walking over here, I was really quite nervous this morning. Obviously when I saw him get handed his baggy green, it was a very emotional moment. Like, this is Ed's dream come true, like out there today, his head would be spinning. This is, you know, he's wanted this dream ever since the day he was born, I think.
Cricket in Australia in our summer is a big deal. Test cricket, baggy green cap's a big deal. It's a symbol for kids to dream about and for people to aspire to and for people to admire.
Look at them pounding their way out there. It's that goosebumps that you feel every Boxing Day. And just think about Ed Cowan. What's he going through? 29 years of age. He's got a technique for Test cricket. I'm really looking forward to this.
The beautiful thing about cricket is you're in control of your action, so you become very routine focused. So a lot of the times you don't notice the crowd. It's a blur. You can't see anyone in the crowd. You can hear them, but it's sort of that white noise. When you're at the striker's end and you see the bowler running in, it's not just physical, it's how you breathe and the number of breaths and the type of breaths, and it almost becomes this sort of meditative state that you can get yourself into when you're batting. You know, 80,000 people are coming to watch you play cricket and you're just in your own little world enjoying your own private test match.
So here, Khan to take up the attack from the members' end, and Ed Cowan on strike.
Now those 80,000 people in the Melbourne cricket ground and millions more at home on television waited to see if Ed Cowan was up to the challenge.
But he does tend to leave the ball a lot. He makes bowlers bowl at him. He's away.
It probably wasn't until just before lunch. That was a moment I sort of took stock and looked around, thought, oh my God, there are some people here. What are they doing? Just had a moment to myself of, this is awesome. I'm having a great time. Just keep going, mate. You're doing just fine.
He's done a very good job today of blunting the attack, seeing through the new ball. Now a chance of making a 50 on debut.
That's it. It's the start of taking a big opportunity for Ed Cowan. 50 on Boxing Day.
I had no idea where Ginny or any of my family were at that moment. So, you know, probably got a little excited with raising my bat. I thought I'd acknowledge the whole crowd and at least I'd know that I would have got them to some degree.
Three days later, Australia had won the game. When it was over, we saw Ed in the changing rooms.
Awesome.
Ed Cowan was now a Test cricketer, and the struggle had been worth it. Watching Ed's success, it was easy to forget we had come to Australia to investigate whether Test cricket was dying.
You want my head off?
Fortunately, most of cricket were on hand to bring us back to earth.
Yep.
Am I looking at you, Sam? Or?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm ready.
What are you asking me? I've forgotten.
This isn't supposed to be serious, is it?
What?
I think Test cricket is, dare I say it, extremely vulnerable at the moment.
Do you fear for the future of Test cricket?
I do fear.
I fear for the importance and the relevance of Test cricket.
There probably is too much international cricket, most definitely.
Short Test series that don't really mean anything.
I definitely do see crowds not coming as they used to before.
The world's got faster, you know, I think attention spans are shorter.
How do you get a 20-year-old to come and watch 5 days?
People under 25 are dropping off cricket, and under 15, it's a vacuum, it doesn't exist.
As cricket fans, we were used to hearing this sort of thing. Some people had said Test cricket was dead the day it was born, that no one in Victorian England had time for a game that took days. But 140 years later, it was still going. And at the same time, cricket had constantly reinvented itself. The game's modern hinge point had come in 2003. when cricket had invented the latest, shorter, sexier format of the sport. 2020 condensed a 5-day game into 3 hours, and if Test cricket demanded patience and concentration, 2020 was full of big hits and instant entertainment. The public couldn't get enough, and 2020 was now played in leagues around the world. Chief among them, the Indian Premier League, cricket's new zeitgeist.
I see so many flags going right around the ground, and they're shouting the name. We want a 6.
There you are.
Okay, I'll give them a 6.
Whoa!
It's a great feeling. Going. Beautiful.
It seemed like cricket was in the middle of an ideological war. It was Test cricket versus 2020.
Chennai Super Kings.
For 161 on the first day of the third Vodafone Test match here at the Wacker Ground in Perth. You should have seen Ed Cowan and David Warner go to the middle. Gee, they ran out.
And in Australia, as Ed Cowan's first Test series continued, we were seeing the battle play out for ourselves. Whereas Ed's defensive style made him a traditional Test cricketer, his opening partner David Warner had shot to fame in 2020. Warner was aggressive and exciting, and the crowds and the advertisers loved him.
They want to see probably 300 or 400 runs in a day. You know, it is tough as Test cricket. You know, you've got to have to play your shots, and people like to see that, and that's entertainment.
Through. Now the pull shot. Oh, it's 4.
Oh, gee. What sort of shot is that? I tell you what it is, it's a huge shot. Oh, he's gone long this time. Is it there? Yes!
While their contrasting styles made for a good partnership, it felt like Ed and Warner were competing for the hearts and minds of the cricketing public.
Thank you. That was some viewing.
Test cricket or 2020?
2020.
2020. Test cricket.
What do you think of David Warner?
Very good.
Really?
It's epic.
Really?
He's going to be a hero.
I think we're settling into a great combination. It's amazing though, we're 150 after 23 overs.
Incredible.
Mr. Warner, would it be okay if I got you a autograph?
Yeah, mate, no problem.
Could you write 101 off 60, please, as well?
Good footage for your movie.
Off 60, no?
End of the day, right? There's one bloke. One
Aussie,
day. He's doing what he can. He's doing these ones.
Aussie.
Next thing you know, he's doing these ones. 2020, they're just doing these ones, mate. That's shit.
You
Combine these ones with these ones. Oh,
You'll never take away Test cricket.
delicious.
4 bowled 6. 4 bowled 6.
We didn't get it. Warner and Ed both still wanted to play Test cricket, and the game allowed both of them to succeed. And if Warner and 2020 brought new fans with them, was there really a problem? The head of cricket in Australia believed not, at least in his country.
In our part of the world, Test cricket's in fantastic shape. I think we've seen over the course of the last decade a real re-emergence of the strength of Test cricket. It would appear on the surface that there are different and perhaps even greater challenges in other parts of the world.
So, where and how was Test cricket struggling? Gideon Haigh, the most respected cricket historian in the world, was the perfect person to give us our first lesson in the arcane world of cricket administration.
Could you outline for us what the key problems with cricket, as you see them, are? It's the best I've got. As one of the chief consumers.
I'd condense it into
into a question, which I don't think administrators have answered, which is that does cricket make money in order to exist, or does it exist in order to make money? And I think that hitherto the first is applied, increasingly the second applies.
So Test cricket's problems came back to one thing. The satellite television boom had turned cricket into a billion-dollar sport, but that money came predominantly from the TV-friendly shorter formats, and particularly in the 3 countries whose economies and populations combined to generate huge value television deals. This meant that their national boards were entrenched at the top of cricket.
It's funny, you know, the end of colonialism is always meant to beget or nurture democracy, but in fact what we have is an increasingly oligarchic cricket state run by 2 or 3 powerful nations in cahoots with each other, forming alliances as and when they see fit.
It was a different story elsewhere, with the other 7 test-playing nations virtually bankrupt. One of these were the team that had first helped me fall in love with Test cricket 25 years earlier. West Indies had been the best team in the world for a generation until the mid-1990s. But today, with a small population and television audience, they were unable to compete on or off the pitch with the big 3 nations. An increasingly typical story among cricket's smaller countries, for whom playing Test cricket made little financial sense. And cricket's big 3 were less and less interested in playing Test cricket against them.
Occasionally you might get 2 test matches or 3 test matches against a top team. So where that leave you as one of the teams below? So how are you gonna look at it now? You know, it's ridiculous, you know.
Now, with Indian, English and Australian administrators organising more and more lucrative matches between themselves, West Indies had little option but to play fewer test matches and more of the more profitable shorter formats.
What we are seeing, the rest of the world, as far as the administrators of the game are concerned, don't care about West Indies cricket. You hear a lot of talk around, oh, world cricket won't be strong until West Indies are strong. I don't think the administrators feel that at all. You know, world cricket will be strong as long as you have plenty of money.
It was clear world cricket was in serious trouble. So who were these administrators and what were they doing to our game?
Well, the nature of administration's actually changed quite a lot. As cricket's become more lucrative and more culturally significant, it's attracted more and more politicos. And they're not particularly interested in people who are fans of the game.
To help us understand why the big 3 countries would not support the survival of Test cricket around the world, Gideon directed us right to the top of the game.
Have you thought about doing Haroon Lorgat?
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd be good. Look, he's talkative at the moment because he's fucking pissed off. Do you want to turn that off?
Isn't there a cricket ground at the end? I don't know, where are we?
Haroon Lorgat was the chief executive of cricket's governing body, the International Cricket Council, which distributed over $1 billion of TV income equally among the 10 test nations. But it was easy to see why Lorgat might be annoyed. He was just a servant of the ICC board, made up of representatives of the boards of those test nations.
Are you frustrated you can only push cricket so far?
In a sense that you've got to work with the members is a challenge. It's frustrating in the sense that we don't have executive authority to do as we would like. It means dealing with each of the respective members is challenging that. We've got to get together to make the best decisions for the game, and that's not always easy.
Lorgat's main problem was the ICC's most powerful member, the Board of Control for Cricket in India, the BCCI, whose potential TV audience of 1.3 billion made them the dominant force in cricket's economy. With cricket's poorer nations relying upon the TV revenues from India touring their country, no one could afford to disagree with them, And behind the scenes, the BCCI, rather than Lorgat, controlled the ICC.
I'm not concerned about the strength of the BCCI. What concerns me more is about the weakness of other boards. I think governance is impacted or affected if you've got weak member boards.
Now, though, we had heard that the Indian board wanted to change the way ICC revenues were divided, so that they got a larger share of the TV income at the expense of the smaller countries. And they appeared to be blocking Lorgat's attempts at reform until they got their way. Lorgat had announced he was retiring early, but if we'd hoped he would open up, we were to be disappointed.
What is the reason you're leaving your position?
I think 4 years is a long time in this role. I feel that I've contributed in a manner that I feel comfortable with, and I think I've done as best as I can, and it's perhaps a good time for someone else to pick up.
No wonder cricket's dying if everyone just goes, well, you know, I can't see anything on camera, but I can hint at the fact that something might be wrong. It's just like, just come out and say it. If everyone comes out and says something, maybe something will change.
But as India lost their third Test match in a row, others did start to voice their fears, that the BCCI were no longer interested in Test cricket.
It actually means a lot because, you know, we're a passionate cricket nation. It means it's a case of misplaced priorities. It means you're not taking Test cricket seriously. It means 2020 cricket and one-day international cricket is the be-all and end-all of Indian cricket. My question is to the Indian Cricket Board. Is the Indian Cricket Board interested enough in saying Test match cricket is our priority? The actions have told us that it's not.
The Indians seem to be besotted on 2020 cricket and the IPL. So the current administrators have got a huge obligation now to see to it that cricket, that Test cricket in particular, maintains its status.
Whoever wants to say anything, they're most welcome to say it. Be my guest. If India is powerful at the moment, so be it. You know, the others have to live with it.
It was clear that we were no longer making a film about Test cricket. Test cricket was just a small part of the battle for control of the whole game. And there was no way cricket could deal with any of its competing interests without proper governance.
Everybody cowers at the feet of the financial muscle held by India. India, who have every right to run the game, they want to run the game, and why shouldn't they run the game if they generate the greatest interest and income, are not prepared to be held responsible or accountable. And so this extraordinary circle of uncertainty and lack of pastoral care continues.
There was one final test to play, and India would lose again. Ed Cowan had had the summer of his life, and for all the problems we were seeing, he was a reminder of the simple dreams the sport was built on.
This is our final. This is almost a farewell. Johnny Farnham farewell tour. What do you want to know?
Well, I want you to tell me how you feel.
Tired, emotionally drained, but a very deep sense of satisfaction. It's 10 times, 50 times better than what you could ever imagine. It does feel like the start of something.
One of the great characters of Edward, which you can go right to the whole thing, is he plays cricket for a team. He's always played cricket for a team. He's been taught to think like that. You don't play to be famous, you play because you want to win the game. The team wins, not you.
As we left Australia, we were worried for the future of cricket, and that if Test cricket died, these values died too. trampled in the pursuit of money and power.
The laws which governed the game 100 years ago were in a very crude state. I mean, so this is a piece written in 1887 about 1787.
But back in London came the bombshell cricket needed. As a final act, Haroon Lorgat had commissioned the English judge Lord Wolfe to assess ICC governance.
I was asked by the International Cricket Council to have a look at their governance, because although I'm certainly not an expert cricketer, I do know about governance. With regard to the conduct of the players in the field, there were rules in place to ensure that they behaved in an appropriate manner. But what applied on the field to the players didn't apply in the boardroom. They weren't governed by any ethics as far as I could see. And decisions were being made with regard to large sums of money which didn't have in place the sort of protections which would normally exist in your local club, or you'd expect to exist in your local club.
Wolfe's report called for independent governance to sort out an organisation fundamentally unbalanced by the self-interest of its richest members and lacking basic accountability and transparency. It warned that cricket faced dire consequences if this advice was ignored. Surely the game had to listen. So we went to see Giles Clarke, the chairman of English cricket and England's representative on the ICC board, to ask him what he thought.
Lord Wolfe said in his report, I quote, "Cricket's a great game. It deserves to have governance, including management and ethics, worthy of the sport. This is not the position at the present time." Do you agree with him?
No, I don't.
Okay. He also said, currently the ICC reacts as though it is primarily a members' club. Its interest in enhancing the global development of the game is secondary.
The question is, what is the ICC? And Lord Wolfe, in my judgment, is yet to fully understand what the ICC is.
He's entitled to his view. I'm entitled to my view. And as I've indicated, I don't think it should be a members' club. I think it should be run for the benefit of cricket as a whole, rather than the interests of individual members.
I've heard more nonsense described to me as being something is that it's in the greater interests of cricket. What is the greater interests of cricket? Because I'm very clear on what cricket's needs in this building and in this country are. What is in the interest of cricket is that the support surely provides an exciting and dramatic spectacle at international level where the contests are seen as being fair.
Clarke's background was running pet shops and a wine business. And here he was telling us that a former Lord Chief Justice knew nothing about governance. The BCCI rejected Wolfe's report too. This seemed crazy, but no one was surprised.
The Wolfe report was calling for turkeys to start voting for Christmas. He was saying that the people who run cricket are too powerful, they should give their power away.
It's a turkeys and Christmas scenario. They're certainly not going to vote themselves out of power.
Do you think we'll ever have an independent ICC?
Before or after hell freezes over?
Feels like fake snow. It's British.
We had to find out why men who appeared to have the best interests of cricket at heart were being ignored. So we went in search of the people who were really running the game. Our next stop was India, a chance to see for ourselves the country who so many in the West were blaming for all of cricket's troubles. This was a country the British once ruled, where cricket had been used to spread the colonial ideal. Things were very different now. Modern India was like 1920s America on speed. on a fast track to modernity as infrastructure and society struggled to keep up. The one thing that united this land of vast extremes was cricket. And so it made sense that in 3 years the IPL had become a multi-billion-dollar brand, in the process cementing India's status as cricket's richest force.
In India, they say that 3 things sell: cricket, religion, and Bollywood. And suddenly you have this mixture of cricket and Bollywood coming together. And the cocktail is so powerful, it's mega entertainment for an average Indian.
It was our first time seeing it in the flesh, and it was unlike any cricket we'd ever seen before. It was incredible. The IPL had been forced into being by one man, one ego, the aspiring Indian administrator, Lalit Modi.
It's truly a momentous day for India and for the great game of cricket. We will be treated to some of the most exciting sport that this country has ever seen.
His ambition and his passion was incredible. I don't think anybody could have managed to do what he did.
Modi was a maverick with a checkered past who found his niche in cricket after spells in television and marketing. In 2020, he saw the perfect opportunity to monetize the Indian market.
He gets stuff done. The man is a genius at what he does.
Do you think it's fair to say you don't need any more introductions? You're such a celebrity now.
No, I'm not a celebrity, but I definitely...
I saw a very keen businessman, though I'm told he comes from a history of failed businesses. But, I mean, everyone talks of the other side to him, which I didn't see. So I don't know if it exists, probably does.
I think this is a godsend. And I think this is the best thing that's ever happened to Indian cricket.
IPL doesn't compete with Test cricket, it competes with Bollywood. And it's mobilised a whole lot of people who previously had never been cricket. So how can that possibly be bad for cricket?
Well, there was one problem. Modi's model changed a not-for-profit sport into a commercial free-for-all.
10:40 a.m. and the auction buzz was at...
The IPL generated huge amounts of money for the BCCI. It was contested by privately owned franchises sold to mega-rich celebrity owners who spent huge sums of money on signing the best players from all around the world.
Number 17, Kevin Peterson.
There's a lot of players out there who can thank Lalit Modi for making them very, very wealthy people.
1,500,000.
Cricket had never seen sums like this before.
150,000.
You're playing international cricket and you say, oh, okay, I'm getting $1,000 for an international one-day game. And then when you look, you see you're playing a T20 game and you got like 800,000. That can't be real.
It's Ian Morgan, the English...
If you look at football, how those guys have been paid, it's big, huge business. And the cricket changed into a big, big, big business.
The problem was the 2-month IPL season went up directly against international cricket. And with none of the smaller countries able to match IPL wages, players were forced to choose between playing for their country or earning vast sums of money.
Anywhere else?
At the end of the day, you only play this game for a short while, so you've got to maximise your opportunities.
It's reality. We have been branded as that, so the players going after the money and so forth. But, listen, mate, you have to face reality in life.
And while we were in India, this reality was being borne out on the other side of the world. Our friend Ed Cowan was playing for Australia against a West Indies side missing Gale and several of its other best players, because they were in India at the IPL.
Ricky Ponting's arrival with Ed Cowan brought stability to the innings, and Cowan made his 50.
You're not turning your back on the country, but just present a perfect opportunity. Deep down inside, I know I've accomplished some tough things in Test cricket.
Seeing how much money India were making, many other countries had started their own 2020 leagues, further reducing the opportunities for international and Test cricket. Back in London, we'd spoken to Tim May, the players' representative at the ICC.
We know the players will go to where the money is,
So if international cricket really wants to survive, and along with it Test cricket, it needs to coexist with these, let's say, more fast-growing, more affluent leagues such as the IPL, not conflict. Otherwise, international cricket won't be much of a platform for the sport anymore. It won't be the best against the best, and that's what international cricket should be.
With no one balancing the demands of 2020 and Test cricket, the future looked bleak, as we'd seen for ourselves the previous month in Sri Lanka.
You're watching the Chuck Fleetwood fence. Today I saw a silly short forward point and I liked it.
Close on day 4 in Colombo. Good old-fashioned Test cricket.
Sri Lanka was a cricket-mad country where few locals went to Test matches. The board was $45 million in debt and riddled with politics and conflicts of interest. We were there watching a Test series shortened to nothing so players could go to the IPL, while everyone around us insisted Test cricket remained the pinnacle of the game. This was a system that existed for 3 countries, with everyone else kept on life support for convenience. And as far as we could see, things were only going to get worse. Fortunately, Giles Clarke was on hand to tell us why we'd got it all wrong.
I think what you're doing, with respect, is making a mistake of your earlier stage in your journalistic career, and you haven't seen how things work. In these parts of the world, cricket is the national sport. Cricket will continue.
Is that not complacent to think that cricket will continue when the Sri Lankan attendances at these games have
No, it's not remotely complacent. This game, I could give you the sort of nonsense you're spouting, comes straight out of Wisdom 1909. Straight from the editor's notes. It's almost verbatim. The future of cricket is a dire problem. It's 103 years ago.
But whatever Giles said to us, no one was immune. The IPL cut across the English season too, and back in 2008, under pressure to match IPL wages to keep his best players happy, England's entrepreneurial chairman saw an opportunity to prove he could do things without India. Texan billionaire Alan Stanford arrived at Lord's with a suitcase of money to make English cricket an offer they couldn't refuse.
One night, one game, winner take all, $20 million.
So let me get this right. If you win, $1 million per player. If you lose?
Nothing, absolutely nothing.
I hated the concept of winner take all. That was what really got me. And that is not cricket. It might be a silly old saying, but you do not play cricket for winner take all. That is not what the fundamental of cricket is about. That's not the spirit of the game.
The old ways don't work anymore. You've got to change. You've got to move into the 21st century. You've got to think entertainment. Sports is entertainment, pure and simple.
England fell to pieces. They got slaughtered by the Stanford Superstars or All-Stars or whatever they're called, lost by 10 wickets. And actually, probably the right guys got the money in the end, the guys who were less well off. It then turned out that Stanford was at the top of a great big whacking Ponzi scheme and had been taking money off a lot of people and ended up in prison. And so that didn't work out too well for the ECB.
Will you ever shake the Alan Stanford affair?
Me? Yeah, it's irrelevant. I mean, it is a matter which had horrific consequences for West Indies, major funder of West Indies cricket, let's not forget, and for lots of people in the West Indies. But for us, it's history.
What were the circumstances that made you think that Stanford was a good idea?
I don't talk about Stanford. This interview wasn't about Stanford.
Well, with the interview is about the decisions people make. You must understand that Stanford might appear like...
No, we're not. If you said this was about Test cricket, we'll talk about Test cricket.
Okay. Well, I won't harp on about it, but it is about the decisions that administrators make in order to finance Test cricket as well, in order to promote the game. Surely you see that is part of it.
Next question.
Okay.
Somehow, Giles Clarke survived. But now his efforts to go it alone had failed so spectacularly, he had little option but to try and align himself with India.
Whether something's healthy or unhealthy, you're dealing with reality. Without the Indians being willing to play so much away from India, the situation for a lot of the boards would be very serious indeed.
Back at the IPL, reality was inescapable. Whatever the merits of Test cricket, it was 2020 that was driving the BCCI's wealth and power.
Because Test cricket is very boring because of the defense.
So it's boring, totally.
Test cricket is for elders and for our parents. The day is not far when I think franchisee cricket might take over. Nobody is forced it down anybody's gullet. It's what the people want. It's what the reality is. But I am no one to say that Test cricket must be preserved at all costs. Eventually, it will be the people who will decide.
Arun Lal was right. The people should decide. Our fear was that they wouldn't have the opportunity. If money was the be-all and end-all, Test cricket was doomed. But were those running Indian cricket really so intoxicated on their newfound wealth that they had lost sight of what had helped cricket last so long in the first place? "2020 had not yet passed the test of time, and if this was the future, our nagging question was it cricket or even sport? Or was it entertainment? Cynically constructed, magnificently executed, but entertainment nonetheless. Because while sport endures, entertainment shows get cancelled.
I could be watching Major League Baseball, I could be watching European Champions League football. This is just smash. That's it. Cricket's just about, cricket's more about like the sportsmanship, the stuff that comes along with the game more than the game itself, right? Test cricket seems to embody that more than this.
Maybe it doesn't have those kind of intricacies that Test cricket had, that has endured almost 200 years. So I fear that this might cannibalize on Test cricket and then fade away on its own. That's the major problem.
If Lal was right, it wasn't just Test cricket, but the whole sport that was under threat. But before we could reach any conclusions about cricket's future, we had to understand the motivations of the BCCI.
There comes a time when money ceases to be important. And unless the BCCI is able to be more socially responsible and play a role whereby cricket can go forward, I think world cricket is entering a phase and Indian cricket is entering a phase which is going to be seriously problematic.
I think BCCI is right now a reflection of India, the nation, in the sense that there is this sense of grievance which they have nursed over years, and suddenly they have found a voice. There's a feeling that we can't do any wrong.
We had begun to hear rumours that the BCCI were now threatening to abandon world cricket, to keep their vast television revenues for themselves.
Indian cricket administrators suspect strongly that India is not getting the full benefit of the profit that the Indian game generates. Then it might be better if India just sort of went it alone. If you like, that the IPL was just the warning shots. If that means bad news for Test match cricket or international cricket, in the end, it won't mind that too much.
All roads now led us to one man, the president of the BCCI and the most powerful man in world cricket, the cement magnate Srinivasan. Everyone we'd spoken to had told us we'd never get to him. But it turned out that the man known as the inscrutable leader of an impenetrable empire answered his mobile phone like everyone else.
We were hoping it was really about the way that, you know, the future of Test cricket. It would be a video interview, if that's okay. It would be for a film.
All right, so when... this is my itinerary now.
Well, that's very kind, Mr. Srinivasan. I will be in touch and let you know how we go. Thank you very much. Okay, all the best. Bye. That was weird. Wasn't expecting just to pick up. We found out that that's actually like T. Srinivasan.
That's what I was thinking. It's Paul Srinivasan.
Yeah.
He runs a carpet supply company in Chennai.
Yeah. So what do we do now? Do we go to say he's in Chennai? Okay, flights, Chennai, flights. Mumbai to Chennai.
N. Srinivasan was the man responsible for the game that was everything to over 1 billion Indians.
What you see out there in the 22 yards is just not Indian cricket. Indian cricket is also played by the real political parties in India. It's as political as it can be. That's how important the president of the BCCI is. He's one of the biggest celebrities in the country. All of these things taken together, Indian cricket is very serious. It's very, very serious.
Tell me that doesn't look like Richie Benaud. It does.
Now we had an audience with him. Our intention was to confront him with the BCCI's responsibility to the global game.
What do you think the perception of BCCI is?
Well, I think the BCCI is a very well-meaning organization. You know, we are not an ogre. We have no interest to bring down, to hurt cricket in any way. That is incorrect. IPL doesn't mean we have lost focus on Test cricket. We believe in Test cricket.
When we turned to asking him about the effect of the IPL on world cricket, we began to see that inscrutability for ourselves.
The IPL has not really affected that many players. I think that to say that this is the reason why Test cricket is, players are not playing Test cricket, that I don't accept. As far as the Wolf report is concerned, I think first and foremost it starts out to say ICC should own the game. I don't agree. And then now you want to say that the person who provides you the money should not have an automatic right to sit on the board.
How much of the ICC is politics?
We're all equal when we sit at the table there. We may have differing points of view. We may have differing points of view on some issues, but that doesn't mean there's politics in it, no. That I won't accept.
We left with a warning to make sure our film was fair and balanced to those who were merely servants of the game. Srinivasan had proved as evasive as we'd been warned, and we never got to the bottom of what was driving the BCCI or Srinivasan himself.
They don't own the game. He was clearly doing it with an agenda, and I failed that test. We don't need administrators, we need people with vision and guts and determination.
Because Srinivasan's position at the head of the BCCI contained a serious conflict of interest.
And Srinivasan, he runs a company called India Cements, yet he's also the now president of the board, and he runs an IPL team. Isn't that a conflict of interest? And they changed the rules. They actually changed the constitution so that Mr. Srinivasan could actually buy a franchise.
In 2008, Srinivasan's company, India Cements Limited, had purchased one of the 8 original IPL franchises, the Chennai Super Kings.
My very own IT company.
It meant that the man who could decide the future of Test cricket stood to benefit financially from the tournament that threatened it the most. So, were Srinivasan's personal interests influencing BCCI decisions? We had to speak to the one man who knew him better than anyone, his former ally, Lalit Modi. By 2010, the cult of Modi had become too big for Srinivasan to ignore.
The BCCI used him when he was at his best. He was the marketing czar who could do no wrong. And then once he became too big for his boots, perhaps, he was becoming the face of IPL. It was a tournament synonymous with Lalit Modi and not the BCCI. The BCCI pushed him aside.
After the IPL final, where Chennai beat Mumbai at 1 a.m. last night, the BCCI then emailed a 34-page charge sheet against Lalit Modi, listing 22 charges of impropriety ranging from financial irregularities to rigging bids.
Do you think that the IPL would have existed without Lalit Modi?
I think the IPL has grown and is better, and there is no controversy now.
So you're saying he was the reason that there was controversy before?
I don't want to, I don't want to give importance to Lalit Modi and talk about him.
How does Lalit Modi going from being hero number one to suddenly public enemy number one in the BCCI?
Okay, it's a part of life, I'm always been a public enemy for a long time. It's all right. As far as BCCI is concerned. But Mr. Modi, are you confident to come back? Come back. I have not gone anywhere.
Claiming to have received threats to his life, Modi had fled the country for London, as the world he'd helped to build carried on without him. So now we headed back to London too, in search of the man we hoped would shed some light on what Srinivasan was up to.
I love the IPL because I created it, and nobody can take that away from me. There are many allegations against me, and not a single one proved. 2 years down the line, I'm fighting it, and I'm convinced that it's all political, and we'll fight it going forward. And Mr. Srinivasan, less said the better.
Instead of talking about Srinivasan, what Modi wanted to tell us about was how he was the potential saviour of Test cricket.
The players who play Test cricket are the ultimate players of cricket. T20 should be there to supplement it and to subsidise it to a certain extent, but to bring the fans back into the game.
This seemed a remarkable turnaround from the creator of the IPL, but we couldn't ignore a man who had proved he could make money and expand cricket's fan base.
We as cricket administrators, our job is to promote the game and build the fan base. And this is what people forget. Our job is not only to get the money. Money will come if we keep the fans. So the key and the fundamental issue is don't lose your focus on the fan. Always have the fan at the center of anything that you do. At the end of the day, you've got to find ways and means to enhance the game, and the politics should play a secondary role.
The problem for world cricket and its fans is that politics does play a role. There were 105 countries who played cricket, but only 10 were allowed to play Test cricket, and they awarded themselves 3/4 of ICC revenues. Meaning the others, including several of the biggest economies in the world, were starved of the opportunity for development.
The NYPD Cricket League plays a modified version of the sport called 20-20, which is 20 overs per side and more popular in the United States.
China, for example, only received $30,000 annually to grow the game in a country of 1.4 billion people. There was, though, a potential answer to this problem, using 2020 to take cricket to the Olympics.
What the Chinese government told me was that once it becomes an Olympic sport, then the amount of funding we get from our government is going to be so large that we will pay for everything. But just get us to a stage where it becomes an Olympic sport.
Olympic status would see the Chinese government pledge up to $20 million a year to the development of cricket.
You reach out to China, you reach out to over 1 billion people. Even if out of those 1 billion people, 10% play cricket, that's 100 million people. That's what it's about. And that's what should be the role of sport, is to bring pleasure to hundreds of people, thousands, in this case, millions of people.
China are just one of many countries who would benefit from cricket's Olympic inclusion. So what did the ICC think about cricket in the Olympics?
What do you think of cricket in the Olympics?
I think it's a tournament for too far. The Olympics takes place during the English season. It's impossible for us to set aside time for it. It would have an enormous economic impact on the game in this country. It's a complete non-starter.
But you could see how it could appear to be an example of a board putting its own thoughts first rather than the game as a whole. In terms of, if you're talking about growing...
I have every right to put my board's interests first.
The sport we love was shrinking before our eyes.
How many sports in the world are actually contracting, are actually trying to diminish the number of countries that play at its top level? That just seems to be cutting off your nose to spite your face.
And as nobody seemed interested in doing anything to help cricket, it was time for drastic action.
You know, in terms of getting the whistleblower and stuff like that. Is that something you'd be prepared to talk about?
I quit the Chuck Fleetwood Smiths to finish the film and get it out there. This was taking over my life. Jarrod remained on the inside with his ear to the ground for developments.
It's not about cricket, it's about life, and it's about things that people love. Most cricket fans have no idea that their game is basically being strangled by the three major nations.
Then things started to get strange for both of us. We'd released a trailer to raise money featuring a picture of Giles, Clarke and Alan Stanford, and it seemed it hadn't gone unnoticed, as Jarrod's press pass was mysteriously withheld. At a meeting at Giles Clarke's office, Jarrod's boss was asked to explain what we were doing with this film. Clarke also wrongly alleged that Jarrod had racially abused an ICC employee. All we'd wanted to do was make a film about Test cricket. Now we'd wandered into a 70s paranoia movie where our careers and reputations were at stake. An ex-member of the ICC told us we'd be making things worse for ourselves if we carried on, as interviews we had been promised were withdrawn. Others, scared about repercussions, wouldn't come on camera. Things were getting murkier by the day. For the first time in my life, cricket no longer felt like a game.
It exists mainly for the interests of broadcasters, advertisers, entrepreneurial administrators, elite players, corporate investors and sponsors. And the fan, where he's considered a tool, is there to be monetised and to be exploited.
But just as we were losing faith, came a reminder of what we were fighting for.
Well, it's brought about a field change. There are now two men out on the boundary.
There's the back foot again, and wow! Cut nicely. He's looking good, Ed Cowan. He's really putting in at the moment. There's another beautiful back foot cut. They need a couple of individuals to stand up, and it just might be Ed Cowan. He's getting himself going. He's done it! Ed Cowan fulfills the boyhood dream. The moment that will live with him for the rest of his life.
Imagine what's going through Ed Cowan's head. Imagine all the hours and hours, the hard yards, training sessions, the net practices, the coaches, the advice, the thought processes, the move, the decision to go to Tasmania. and then finally the realisation of that dream.
Very happy man there in Ed Cowan's maiden Test 100. Incredible innings. Great moment for the young man.
Back in London, as a new year dawned, we had a breakthrough of our own. As one of the sources we'd been chasing finally agreed to talk to us. David Becker had been head of legal affairs at the ICC and a key ally of Haroon Lorgat, but had quit his post in 2012, disillusioned at how cricket was being run. He wasn't keen to go on the record yet, but finally, this was a credible source giving legitimacy to all the rumours we'd heard about how Srinivasan and his lackeys were controlling world cricket. Now we weren't alone. And in search of an ending to our investigation, off we went again, this time to the new home of cricket, Dubai. Ten years previously, in an apparent show of democratisation and modernity, the ICC had moved from Lords to Dubai, with tax-saving opportunities finally forcing a break from its colonial womb. Now their headquarters stood in Dubai's Sports City, a half-built monument to an era of global excess. This was where the most powerful men in cricket met to decide the future of the game, and we were here to see it for ourselves. But we had to find them first.
That actually doesn't look unlike it.
All right, well, it says ICC on it, so that should narrow it down. That one over there.
Because no one knew where these meetings happened or what was said. There was no press conference, no agenda, no published minutes to explain decisions worth billions of dollars that affected billions of people.
It is in its own little...
And as David Becker explained later, India, with the help of England and Australia, were regularly manipulating votes at the ICC board table.
As head of legal, I was responsible for overseeing all the legal aspects of international cricket. 2012, it became obvious that decisions amongst the key powers, particularly the big three, were being made in the corridors and being presented to the ICC board. You became aware that there was a pattern emerging. These proposals, which were ostensibly in the best interest of the game, were being rejected. It then occurred to me that either I try and implement from the inside some of these changes that emanated from the Wolf Report, or I leave the organisation, and I chose the latter.
Back on the trail of the meeting, we got a tip-off.
Yeah, it looks like he's saying at the Marriott, there is a few Marriotts. Do you know if there's an international cricket meeting at your hotel? It is excellent.
In the best traditions of investigative journalism, we found ourselves a fake shake and headed on in.
I just thought it looked quite cool.
We knew we wouldn't be welcome, but we had to pierce this ridiculous secrecy and ask Srinivasan and Clarke one question. Why was cricket shrinking on their watch?
Send Ahmed out onto the roof. Send Ahmed out onto the roof, do you reckon? Ahmed, if you go out onto the roof, mate.
Unfortunately, our sheikh hadn't charged his camera battery. But soon the main men started arriving. Peter Chingoka, head of cricket in Zimbabwe and right-hand man to Robert Mugabe. Then a familiar face arrived.
Giles. Hello.
We waited all day, but the closest we got to answers was a press officer.
We just want to ask one question. We've been investigating this film for 2 years. Everything comes back to this meeting. We have one question, which just comes down to transparency and accountability. Sammy, this isn't heads of state. This is cricket.
If we are recording all this, Sam,
Sammy.
Oh, sorry.
if we are doing this, I will be very, very unhappy. Can you show?
So.
No.
When it was over, we felt like we'd blown it. We'd come all this way and got nothing. But even we couldn't have imagined what was really going on behind the scenes that day. It wouldn't be long before we found out that things were far worse than we had ever suspected. First, one of Srinivasan's opponents and a vocal supporter of the Wolf Report, Players' representative Tim May was swept aside from his position at the ICC as the BCCI pressurised national boards to get their candidate elected in his place.
We're aware of the fact that the captains have come under pressure not to vote for Tim May.
There was just pressure put on them that if they didn't vote for that particular candidate, that tours would be taken away or India would not tour those particular countries.
So when they were told that, who are they being told that by? Are they being told
by their boards, by their individual boards, who obviously were feeling the pressure from BCCI.
May's replacement, Laxman Sivaramakrishnan, was from India, a country that didn't recognise player unions.
This is just exactly how cricket runs, and the major decisions being made at the ICC have been made, just the outcomes are a function of threat and intimidation.
And Sivaramakrishnan just happened to hold an interesting link to Srinivasan.
Sivaramakrishnan is an employee of India Cements. So if someone comes and says, oh, there is a direct connection between Mr. Srinivasan and Sivaramakrishnan, yes.
But cricket's night of the long knives was not over yet. Next in Srinivasan's sights was Haroon Lorgat, who was back in cricket as Chief Executive of Cricket South Africa. The BCCI were quick to make their disapproval known.
I believe I've done everything I possibly could, but we shouldn't be naive about the influence that people have.
As far as Haroon Lorgat is concerned, we have differed on issues several times, but there's nothing personal.
To punish South Africa for appointing Lorgat, the BCCI threatened to hit them where it hurt, their TV revenues.
In a development bordering on the absurd, the BCCI has reportedly threatened to pull out of the tour to South Africa later this year.
Eventually, India settled for a shortened tour, costing South African cricket tens of millions of dollars. The ICC and the rest of cricket just stood and watched. To David Becker, the ICC were ignoring a binding agreement to the tour.
I was quite astounded by this. Any company that passes a board resolution is required to act in accordance with that board resolution and enforce it. Otherwise, it acts contrary to principles of corporate law. It acts illegally.
At this point, Becker released a public statement, putting his career on the line for his principles.
I felt it was really important to come out, particularly at that juncture. If an organisation was not prepared to uphold and enforce its own resolutions, it was a significant issue for the game of cricket. There's no doubt that those within the game are very frightened about speaking out. These are very powerful people who run cricket.
The message to the rest of cricket was clear. Don't cross N. Srinivasan. But not everyone was intimidated.
Just had a chat with Lalit Modi. He seems to have been allowing us to spend some time with him, observing him. He is. I don't know what to make of him yet. I think Lalit could hold the key to the whole film, basically, because he is the one guy. He knows where the bodies are buried.
Whether we trusted Modi or not, he was our best chance of finding the one piece of evidence that could rein in Srinivasan and bring proper accountable governance to the ICC.
Did you see the email I sent you? The name is Giles Clarke at ECB. It's in his book as Clarke ECB. Somebody emailed me this document. I'm not going to ask him where he got it from. I have an open invitation on Twitter.
Modi showed us emails he claimed were one example of how India, England and Australia were colluding to control the ICC board.
It's basically 3 or 4 people, and how they manipulated over the years their plan of fixing the ICC as their own personal domain, and how they have encroached upon good governance and brought disrepute to the game, and it's important to expose that.
But even Lalit Modi didn't seem to have the silver bullet that cricket needed. Maybe his reforming zeal was encouraged by the troubles of his nemesis back in India. As Srinivasan's IPL team, the Chennai Super Kings, became embroiled in a match-fixing scandal that led right back to Srinivasan's door.
The Mumbai police is likely to question Gurunath Mayappan, who's the son-in-law of Chennai Super Kings owner N. Srinivasan.
Srinivasan's son-in-law, in charge of running the Chennai Super Kings, was caught placing illegal bets and tipping off bookies about team selection. Suddenly, Srinivasan's empire appeared to be crumbling.
I have done nothing wrong. I have no intention to resign. I cannot be bulldozed or railroaded into resigning.
Now, cricket at the end of the day is a gentleman's game, right? There is a degree of morality.
No question about it.
Mr. Srinivasan and Gurunath Mayappan are implicated in the whole saga. Mr. Srinivasan not directly, but being BCCI president and being the father-in-law of Gurunath Mayappan should have stepped down, and Gurunath Mayappan, by having betted, has brought the game of cricket into disrepute. There is no two ways about it.
First to put the boot in was, of course, Lalit Modi.
Nothing happened in the BCCI or in the IPL or in the ICC, as a matter of fact, without the stamp of Mr. Srinivasan. What I created can't be taken away. Yes, I'm responsible partly for Srinivasan's rise.
Mr. Modi, how much of responsibility would you yourself take tonight?
I take full responsibility for the fact that that I created a monster. Cricket is going through a turmoil. And turmoil not because of the product, but because of the administration. Do you know what the quantum of betting is today? $2 billion a game. Now, when you talk about $2 billion a game, you're talking about a whole new economy. For the first time, we are seeing family members of cricket administrators involved in betting and match fixing. We don't know where it stops. What is the biggest taboo in the corporate world? It's insider trading. In insider trading business, you're playing with money, and it's greed, and it's to do with adults. In the case of sport, it reaches down to our children. It reaches down to everybody, and it's to do with the emotions. It is going to destroy the game and all forms of the game.
Modi was screaming from every media platform available, but no one was listening. Somehow, Srinivasan clung on to power in those months that followed. How was a mystery to us, at least until we took a step back and had a look at the world he had created for himself. Everywhere you look in cricket, there is an India Cements employee or someone who owes something to Srinivasan. The current captain of India, MS Dhoni, is also a vice president of India Cements, the captain of Chennai Super Kings. I mean, where does this whole thing stop?
It's not so much that he's running the game, he's become the alpha and the omega of the game. He's the very centre of it. You can't dig him out because he is cricket at this point. He's, at this stage, any committee to get rid of him, he'd be on.
The only people who could stand up to him and try and get rid of him have got too much to lose if it goes wrong, which makes you question what their motivations are.
Yeah, you can't be involved with Srinivasan at this point and not be tainted with that brush. I mean, everyone knows what he's doing. It's now out in the open. There's been newspaper articles, there's been Supreme Court trials, there's been everything that you need to know that there is something going wrong and that he's not running cricket correctly.
What we're talking about is businessmen willing to do absolutely anything to keep hold of unpaid positions running a not-for-profit sport. It doesn't make sense.
For Srinivasan, he's actually making money out of the Chennai Super Kings. And then on top of this, you've got money being made from an illegal cricket stream that links directly back to him. So what is actually happening? Is this unpaid, or is there an actual reason why he's so desperate to keep his power and he just wants it so bad? Why do these men so desperate for this power of cricket? What are they getting out of it that we're not understanding?
But just as we were trying to work it all out, suddenly we got the answer we'd been dreading. We were too late to stop Srinivasan.
The BCCI has given a green signal to a proposal that will give 3 countries, that's India, Australia and England, more power and more money. While the BCCI claims that this move is for the betterment of the game, it could just end up destroying world cricket as we know it.
In January 2014, it emerged that the boards of India, England and Australia had been working in secret for over a year on a series of dramatic reforms for world cricket. These were fundamental changes to cricket's governance. They just happened to be the exact opposite of what Lord Woolf had recommended.
Meaning the BCCI and N. Srinivasan will take central leadership of all international cricketing affairs.
The draft also proposes a new financial model with the big 3 set to have the lion's share.
India, England and Australia had awarded themselves over 50% of ICC revenues. This money would come from funds previously allocated to the smaller test nations and the development of the game.
Have you seen the Dhoni email about this?
N. Srinivasan would become the new chairman of the ICC and effectively head cricket's anti-corruption unit. When several of the poorer boards objected, the BCCI made it clear that if agreement was not reached, India would walk away from international cricket. Now the proposals appeared set to be forced through in Dubai. This time, at least there would be a press conference. We had one final trip to make.
I'm very disappointed. I would hope that cricket would not have adopted the attitude that it has to putting its house in order.
England, Australia and India say trust us. It's a power grab and a money grab. And that's all it is. I think Mr. Putin would be very proud of them.
It's like they want to be superpowers of the world.
If it is agreed, cricket will only be played in the subcontinent and nowhere else. Mr. Srinivasan will stab them.
If you dine with the devil, it said you should use a long fork.
The vote would be a formality. The takeover of the game wasn't in the shadows anymore. It was part of cricket's new constitution. And it went against everything the gentleman's game was supposed to stand for. We had started this film to see if Test cricket had a future, and instead discovered a sporting scandal. A global game and the billions of dollars it generated was being hijacked by 3 countries, who, without transparency or accountability, were putting their own interests ahead of the dreams of 100 others, at the expense of 1 billion fans around the world. Without proper governance, cricket as we knew it had no long-term future. but we felt that the many people who lived, breathed and funded it deserved better. And as we sat there in Dubai and watched it all unfold, with the culprits nowhere to be seen, we realised that while our questions may have made no difference, at least we had recorded the whole story, so that all those other fans could see for themselves how the very men charged with cricket's survival seemed hell-bent on its destruction.
We've never, to be truthful, had much authority.
When we first came into camp for the Ashes series, it felt like the apex of months of work. The biggest moment of your career, an Ashes tour away from home. Felt like everything had gone to plan, and that was the moment. But a change of coach, there was a different feeling around of you're under pressure, you're playing for your spot. I was batting in a net with David Warner, which clearly was a bat-off. And I probably had the greatest net session I've ever had. It just felt like everything was coming together. I was playing well, head was in a really nice spot. And then
Ed Cowan has come out, so it's another left-hander. So two left-handers at the crease. Average is 32, 31 years old. And listen to the crowd now as Finn from the pavilion end.
And I saw the ball and what I thought was a full toss, you know, just hit a full toss.
From the pavilion end, runs in and bowls to Cowan, who drives and it is caught a slip and Finn's on a hat-trick. Cowan's out first ball and listen to that noise.
And you sort of look behind, what have I done? Oh, he's caught it.
And what a remarkable day.
I have to go now? What do you mean?
As Cowan chased it, it's a horrible shot, I'm afraid, for a number 3 batsman. He'll hate looking at that again. Why did he play that? Nerves, pressure, goodness knows what. That was a poor shot.
I was just about to say that Ed Cowan's more a batsman that works on the fence and leaving the ball. There he goes.
And then the trudge back, I was like, this can't be happening. This is an absolute nightmare. I was just so angry. Angry that I'd let myself down. Angry that I'd let my team down.
Test matches do things that strip a man to the bone. They bare your soul. If you're below standard in Test cricket, you're exposed as in no other sport.
Do you feel that the Australian public have judged you now?
Interesting question. Yeah, they probably have.
What do you think they think of you?
Not good enough. Good Aussie battler style cricketer, but not good enough.
I can't see a lot of purpose to cricket without test matches, just as I can't see a lot of purpose to literature if it's only haiku. It exists. T20 needs something to be shorter than. There's something about the epic scope of Test cricket that you would not create now, that is kind of unique to it, that can never be built again, and once it's lost, it can never be replaced. And we will feel its absence when it's gone.
The ICC is like a large family, and humbled by this opportunity to provide leadership to the ICC, to provide, I think, a more financially stable financial position to full members, associates and affiliates, and also take steps to take cricket to all parts of the world.
No one is going to buy a newspaper or turn on a television program to watch a good news story about administration in sport. People aren't interested, and why should they be? We perform these roles unpaid, don't forget, and it's very time consuming because we love the game, we're interested in the game, we care about it.
There will be a time when we will see everything starting to say, I told you so. It's not I told you, I warned you so. I've been trying to tell you again and again and again, and I keep harping about the same thing again and again because I see how detrimental it is to the game, because I love the game, not for any other reason. Somebody other than me would have probably walked away.
I have done nothing wrong. There is no charge of wrong. I mean, I have not done anything wrong for which I should feel that hesitant to take this position.
But there comes a time in every man's life where they need to stand up for the things they believe in. I believe in the governance of the game. I believe in the integrity of the game. I believe it's being compromised.
What matters to us is that the team are properly written about. The team is what people are interested in. The national team, the county teams, that's what people follow. And that's what people should be interested in.
We hope that we can bring back the good gentleman's game back, a policy not only in the playing field but also in the boardrooms.
I can't accept that cricket has an image problem. There may have been some instances, rare instances, few and far between, but I think almost all cricket is very competitive and very fair, hard fought.
What do you hope for the future for Ed?
I hope he enjoys his cricket, does as well as he can, and when it's over, it's over.
You can kick and scream and whinge, or you can get on with it. Well, it could be a lot worse off. I'm very lucky, I'm healthy, happily married, have a beautiful daughter. I poured all my energy into playing cricket. It has felt like I've given it my best shot.
It's a great leveller. It's pretty true to life. You can think that you're brilliant one moment, next minute you're out first ball for naught. Seems to me to be a bit of a character builder. And I think you're better off for the hurdles that you get over as a result of playing our game.
Okay, Roby's turn.
Would you do it again?
Yeah, in a heartbeat.
When I was a young kid growing up in school, when people were asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I just said, I want to be a test cricketer. It's the only life I've known. We react quickly now so that we safeguard and protect test cricket. It just needs us to support it and work with it.
I'll tell you where cricket is in 20 years. It's out there, because I'm still playing it. It's the player's game. And they'll take me out of here in a box, because I think it's the best game in the world.